everyone to the Disruptive Innovation Podcast. Today we are talking about marketing for integrated healthcare with Dr. Larry Ford and Jackie Caro. Dr. Larry Ford received his Bachelor of Science in Behavioral Science and Ethics from Mid-America Christian University in Moore, Oklahoma, a Master's in Counseling with an emphasis in Human Relations from the University of Oklahoma, and he received his Doctorate of Behavioral Health from Arizona State University. Inspired by the volumes of studies that Dr. Ford completed on how infinitely the psyche affects the body, he founded Hands to Guide You as he fulfilled his doctoral studies in November of 2011. Dr. Ford has dedicated much of his career to analyzing and executing core strategies at decreasing excessive healthcare costs in the state of Oklahoma, which has significantly reduced health insurance coverage denial. Known for his holistic approach to integrated care, Dr. Ford's methods are proven to effectively decrease hospital readmission by 30% in Southwest Oklahoma City alone. His life's work is built upon improving the way the world experiences healthcare, and his practice is comprised of a compassionate interdisciplinary treatment team that epitomizes skilled behavioral health services in Oklahoma and numerous other notable achievements. In 2016, Dr. Ford received the prestigious Biodyne Life Change Award from Cummings Graduate Institute, where in 2021, he was chosen as one of our board of directors members. So welcome, Dr. Ford. I will be sharing a couple of links where you can learn more about Dr. Ford, Hands to Guide You, and his Let's Play Sports, which is a new company that he founded in relationship to being chosen as one of a dozen preferred mental health professionals who are exclusively serving the National Basketball Players Association. Congrats on that, Dr. Ford.
Thank you.
Our other guest today is Jackie Caro. She is president and owner of Marketing Ideals Company. This is an Arizona-based boutique agency, which was born 27 years ago out of an innate desire to see just how far her flair for marketing and entrepreneurial spirit would take her professionally. Marketing Ideals Company specializes in artistic branding, creating and implementing unique marketing strategies, launching public and media relations campaigns, and producing events, which are big and small. The company serves a variety of clients representing diverse industries such as medical and behavioral health, higher learning institutions, retail, tech, home improvement, and community for-profit and nonprofit organizations. Over the past few decades, her professional skill sets have changed. The landscape presents an infinite number of digital platforms, advertising methodologies, social channels, and required core competencies for success. So knowing that, Jackie's vision for the company continues to evolve, particularly in the medical and behavioral healthcare arena. As the agency of record for Hands to Guide You, Dr. Ford's agency, Jackie's most recent endeavor, along with Dr. Ford, will explore mental well-being among athletes of all ages, as together they build a sports marketing and management venture that focuses on the whole athlete, mind, body, spirit, ages 16 and over. The services will include branding, endorsements, aligning athletes with player and physical scouts, college team recruitment, pro team contract negotiation, mentorship programs, training, health and wellness coaching and support, and marketing management and public relations. Her quote relevant to marketing clients is, "In the world of marketing, if making it our business to know what comes next is our North Star, then collectively passion, professionalism, and proficiency is our Venus." And you can learn more about Jackie and her company Marketing Ideals in the links that will be provided in the notes for this session. So again, welcome Jackie and welcome Dr. Ford. I'm so happy to be talking with you today. As you know, Dr. Ford, we get a lot of questions from doctors of behavioral health in our DBH program and those who have graduated about marketing their practice. And Jackie, you've been working with CGI to help us market ourselves as a higher educational institution since we founded, pretty much. And we are just very, very blessed to have found you through a connection in our community through a tech organization that we were talking with. And so I'm just so happy to have you both here. You've done so many innovative and interesting things partnering together. And I think that you represent a really good example of how a provider or a provider organization can really partner with a very innovative, forward-thinking marketing company to create new things together. So I'm excited to hear more about what you're doing today. So let's start by just opening it up with talk a little bit about your partnership. How do you come together? How do you work together? What are some of the key things that you do to invigorate the relationship towards meeting shared goals?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that. It's such a joy to be here, and it is such a pleasure to work with both CGI and Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford and I started working together it's been about 2 years now. And originally when we started talking, Dr. Ford, well, first of all, Dr. Ford is always in the throes of something new. He's very forward thinking. He's got great ideas. He is growing by leaps and bounds every day. And I think it's because he is open to new ideas, and he's open to thinking more creatively about where to take the practice and how to get it there. And so when we started talking, it was more than just putting together a digital advertising campaign. It was more than just, strategizing a plan to take the practice to the next level. What was important to us was putting Dr. Ford out there as the face and the spokesperson for the practice to really define the culture of the practice and what Hands to Guide You stands for, and to really define, where the practice is going. Dr. Ford has done a great job of staying relevant in the community, and people love him and they love his team. And so it's been, a joy and very easy to work with Dr. Ford, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear any of that. We love working with Dr. Ford as well. We feel extremely lucky to have him now on our board of directors. Dr. Ford and I got our doctorates together, and then I became, I think I was just maybe a year ahead of you, Dr. Ford, in the DBH program. And then, when we were founding CGI, just from the get-go, we have had unlimited conversations together about the program, and you've really helped to keep my energy level up.
Yeah.
Despite the mountain of work that we do clinically and operationally and financially. So, well, tell me a little bit about, from your perspective, Dr. Ford, working with Jackie and just from a marketing perspective, what are some of the things that Jackie has done for you that you have learned from her or benefited from?
First, I'd like to say thank you for having me again on your show. And I'm going to continue what you said, because that's extremely important. Those that know me and know me well know I'm a high energy guy. So the first thing, from the very first conversation that me and Jackie ever had, I knew right off it was a connection. Mm-hmm. And she gives me energy, and she keeps my energy extremely high, and she's able to match my energy. So with the conversation, the endless conversations that we would have, as me and you have, Dr. E, all the time, Jackie added to my support team and to my support, and she was able to, I'm able to call her literally whenever, late, early, it doesn't matter. She answers and she listens, and we put plans together, and we put them, in place. And that's been extremely beneficial for me, planning and having somebody that can match my energy and intensity and help me put into place in very simple form. So that's been the most beneficial for me. To say the least. She's great. She's great.
Well, and I think that's definitely something we at CGI have experienced with Jackie from the first. I know the first time that I met you, Jackie, I was like, wow, this is, just the ideas were popping. I felt like I felt like I was sweating through my clothes. Yeah. Like there were so many ideas that came up. I was just like, yes. So, and, I think any conversation with Jackie is like that. And the same is true for you, Dr. Ford, when we talk. And so it's definitely, these matches were made divinely, I think. So it's good to be with people who match that energy level. And,
Yes,
and, you know,
extremely
just to go back
important.
to the work that we have, you know, we have a mountain of work ahead of us. Healthcare is still in a sad, sad place, nationally and globally. And there's just, you know, an infinite amount of work for us to do. So when we get burned out, or when we're with, you know, sort of the energy vampire people who are all no's and no yeses, it can definitely get, you know, low energy. And I feel like that's when my forward momentum gets a little clogged in the process. So the pandemic definitely presented us all with a new world. And I know that you two came together very early on to talk about how do we do this? How are we going to not miss a beat with expanding access to people, and you know, helping people take those first steps to get the care that they need, the mental health care that they need, or to access integrated care for the first time. So can you tell me a little bit about that process?
Sure. So one of the things that we knew early on was that we would have to offer telehealth services. Dr. Ford was already set up for virtual, you know, inpatient consults, simply because he offers membership programs through the practice. And so he was already set up for that, but because the pandemic, you know, shut down some practices, didn't allow us to bring patients into the office for a certain period of time, he had to expand that telehealth offering. And he did so quickly. And we were able to see our patients and transition our patients from in-person visits to virtual visits. That went really well for us. But what we also learned during that time is just how important the in-person visits are. Just how important it is for our patients to come in and to engage with our team one-on-one. So it really makes you appreciate that much more, the personal contact that you have with people, you know, that smile, the body language, that, you know, expression that a person gives you when they leave an appointment and they're feeling so much better.
Yeah.
All of those things are important. So we did what we needed to do during the throes of the pandemic, and we offered the virtual services. But as we were able to transition back, we do have patients coming back gladly, you know, into the practice, and a lot of patients, new patients that we've been, you know, marketing to through referrals and also just through digital advertising. Patients are traveling some distance to come and see Dr. Ford. So, you know, we appreciate and we value both virtual and in person, but especially during the pandemic, I think what we learned was that we had to acclimate and that we had to quickly pivot so that we could accommodate everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Dr. Ford, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I agree exactly with what Jackie is saying. And it was extremely a difficult time for me. And the reason I say it was a difficult time because roughly the last 25 years of my life, I've been in healthcare in some form or fashion. And the pandemic made everything different because for the first time in nearly 3 decades, healthcare was involved in a shift that happened nearly overnight. Practices weren't seeing patients. Practices were closed. Hospitals weren't even seeing patients. And then we had a population that we didn't know how we were going to serve them routinely. Luckily, we had already been practicing with telehealth, just not on the scale that we knew we would take it to, first and foremost. So literally, we made the decision, you know, in a few matter of minutes what we were going to do, and we acted on it. And it saved, now we know later looking on that it saved our practice and my clinic. And from that standpoint, we went from in a position to where we may not be able to see anybody to a position to where this is the busiest we've ever been in our history of existence due to telehealth. And then all of my providers started virtual visits, and then referrals started coming. Another thing
Yep.
we did is we shifted our marketing. You know, from day one, we get referral sources from other providers, primary carers, OBGYNs, hospitals, other providers in the medical community, where those providers weren't seeing patients or they
Right.
were closing down.
Mhm.
In the beginning, thinking that, okay, we'll shut down for a month or two, let this pass, the country, the nation get it under control, we'll open back up. Well, that day didn't happen
Mhm. Mhm.
initially.
Mhm.
So we shifted our marketing and we really went with some of the social media platforms,
Mhm.
Google, and we started marketing there. And, the word got out. And
Yep.
like Jackie said earlier, I had already positioned myself and been in the community and been a face in the community. And then arguably the most desperate time in our country, in city, they went with somebody they trusted, which was me.
Right.
One of the things too that we learned early on was that marketing to the patients directly versus marketing to the referring providers are two different things.
Right.
So we had to elevate brand awareness, which,
Mhm.
Again, Dr. Ford has a very good reputation in the community. So we built upon that. But we really did start to advertise our membership programs simply because with more and more people home, more and more people, unfortunately, out of work and without insurance, they still needed a way to connect to their therapist.
Right.
And by running those special offers that we did, I remember the very first one that we did was we launched it Black Friday, right after Thanksgiving. We ran through the first of the year, and Dr. Ford called me, after the first of the year, and he said, I think I need to install some new phone lines. We're getting so many calls on this. So that was interesting. We had, the right verbiage in place, the right price point, and we were driving patients in directly versus having them come in by way of referral.
Right.
More and more people were spending time too on their devices, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. So we really did optimize our social media platforms, Facebook being one of them. And we initiated a Mindful Monday series. So every Monday we have something, and it's funny because people actually anticipate it now and engage with it, but it's a motivational it's not a quote, it's really just content that reminds people about how important it is for self-care, how important it is, and to be brave and to be engaged in the community and one another. And even though these are trying times right now, that this too shall pass.
Right.
So we were doing that. We also created some videos that publish every week. And we really just started to bolster that social media presence. And then on top of that, I was just going to say on top of that, we really did start to build out Dr. Ford's Psychology Today page, which interestingly is one of our biggest drivers now.
I'm not surprised by that at all. And I want to really quickly go to the Facebook posts. So I took a look. Thank you for sending me the Facebook page. As it turned out, I wasn't following Hands to Guide You on Facebook, so now I am. And I was able to go through and take a look at the feed. And the first thing that made me smile was the banner photo of the adorable little girl with the blue background. She's got a big smile. It literally made my face smile authentically, and I was like, "This is boom!" That right there, because so much of what my patients and my staff and me as a human have been experiencing, and this is everybody, but just to share that personal experience during the year 2020 and into the year 2021 is negativity online. It's overwhelming. You can't look at the news without 100 bad stories that make you feel horrible and make you feel disgusted, make you feel down. So to have your page and the updates coming from you that are just small little bits of positivity, mindfulness, which we know research base for mindfulness is without a doubt effective at fighting depression and reducing stress and reducing suicidal ideation and reducing anxiety. So the mindful moments are huge. The imagery is calming, soothing, beautiful to look at, bringing smiles to your face. And so I think, just that alone was a big step in the right direction for a company that is, all about mind, body wellness. So I want to congratulate you on a lot of those, the imagery as well as the content. And I also really like the testimonial Tuesdays. I love hearing those positive testimonials that are coming from those who are working with you. And I think those say a whole lot too about the relationship. Like you said, it's about the culture that you cultivate as a practitioner. It's about the relationship you have with your staff members, and that you and your staff members have with anybody who walks through the door. But oftentimes from a marketing perspective, it's hard to show that. So I think, you've really hit the mark in a lot of ways. And I think it was so intelligent to use social media, because you're right, Jackie, everybody's using their devices, especially in the early days of the pandemic when you can't see other people, you're looking for the connectedness through social media.
That's great.
And I also think it's just such a great way to learn about Hands to Guide You and what Hands to Guide You is all about. So yeah, I think you did a lot of really intelligent things. And one of the things too, and I'm sorry to get on a soapbox here, but I just got to say, working with you, Jackie, one of the things I love so much about it is that you never come from okay, you need to do such and such. What I hear from you is always, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we are doing.
Yeah.
This is what our patients. So you have that partnership built into the relationship you have, and that's key. So I know, Dr. Ford, you got to feel that too. I see you nodding, saying, yeah. How does that feel for you? Because I know for me, it's just like, this is amazing.
It feels amazing, and it's overwhelming just hearing it from somebody else, because the energy is so present. And what I was thinking about actually when you were saying that, I'm looking at 2.5 years ago when me and Jackie first started, and we were talking about things, and we were creating essentially our strategic plans and everything. And me and Jackie, we talk about this all the time, because now, years have passed, but the progression and where we are now looks nothing like where we were before. And it's just amazing. And I remember those days when, it looked so far off. It looked so like, how are we going to do this? How's it going to work? And she's just like, well, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. And this is what it's going to look like. And I'm just like, okay. And then we go with it, and the results are.
And it works.
Yeah, always works. We went, we've added, the past couple of years, we've added, I think, 3 or 4 phone lines, and arguably the worst times in healthcare. We're the busiest this year. Last year it started off slow, and then we picked up and was our busiest year. Now after the first quarter, this is now our busiest year. We're setting records every day, and we're growing.
Yeah.
Growing.
So wonderful to see that. At the same time that you were seeing an explosion in growth for your business, I was working with some of our, students who were saying, one in particular who was very nervous because he saw a dramatic decrease in the number of folks coming. One of the reasons was the referrals, because his primary referral source was a school district. And at the same time, he really, as a practitioner, was very focused on the in-person interactions. And so telehealth was very concerning just from an ethical standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took a while, but, getting him to that point where he accepted that this is the way we continue to see patients and keep a business thriving, as well as we don't limit access because they can't come in person.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to be open to flipping things on a dime and going 100% telehealth without missing a beat, and just saying, we're going to work with you, patient. We're going to work with you, family. We're going to work with you, provider. We're going to, do this via smartphone. We're going to do it via laptop. We're going to figure out a way to keep you going, because this is stressful for us, but it's really stressful for you. So I think that was a big key to success. And I'm wondering, just have you seen things kill other businesses that, are kind of like cautionary tales, and not naming any names, obviously, but just, attitudes or, strategies that have just not worked?
Well, I think that I was just going to say, I think that it's really important. You touched on this before, that reputation is everything. And we have an opportunity with all of these digital platforms that we have online to showcase, our reputation, good, bad, or indifferent, and it's out there. So I think coming from a place of authenticity, coming from a place of genuine care. I remember one of the things that really struck me when Dr. Ford and I spoke for the first time was that he said, my patients, my plan for my patients, or my goal for my patients, isn't that they come and see me forever, indefinitely. We actually want them to get better so that they can live an optimal life, so that they can be well and be happy and move forward and become the person that they were meant to be and that they deserve to be. And so, that comes through in everything that he does. And that's why it's important, again, the staff is important. The way that you welcome patients in, the way that you, when they depart, when they're done with their appointment, if you ask for the review and they've had a great experience, you're going to get your great review. You just let them walk out the door and, you're not really connected or engaged with the patient, who knows what will happen from there.
Right.
Very cognizant of that.
Right. Yeah. I have to say one of the things I like about what you just said, Jackie, is that it goes back to our training. Dr. Ford and I were trained in the Biodyne model under Nick Cummings and Janet Cummings, and it's the patient's bill of rights that says my job is to make me obsolete in quality of life. So I think what that tells me, Jackie, is that part of a key to success is kind of flipping that. What Dr. Cummings, I think, warmly called the trained seal approach of psychotherapy that is outdated and inauthentic if we're really looking at wellness, which is you shouldn't need a therapist for the rest of your life if you're not getting something that allows you to live more independently and allows you to gain the skills that you need to do this on your own. If we're not doing that, we're doing something wrong. And that's really, our training. And so that tells me that, Dr. Ford, something about, just the way you carry yourself, the way that you, in all of your conversations, whether it's a marketing partnership or a patient interaction or a provider interaction, you're really emulating, that highly effective and highly ethical way of setting a person up to have the idea that wellness resides within them, and working with us as doctors of behavioral health can help them unlock, some of what's just not known to them. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, you were talking earlier. I was looking around and I couldn't find one. I was looking for a box, because what stuck out to me when you were speaking was we were never inside of the box. And I think I know what hurts providers and what hurts organizations is the failure to jump out of the box and get rid of the box. That's in one of Dr. Cummings' book. As you know, the box doesn't exist in our world, and literally it hasn't, and it won't exist, because success isn't in the box. It's outside of the box. And we truly understand that, even in critical situations. And I was thinking as you were talking, reviewing like the process and what happened. So I'm sitting here thinking, so I had my whole staff trained. Obviously, I was trained in telehealth through school, and our program, and was extremely familiar with telehealth, but I had my whole staff trained in telehealth and had access to telehealth on our website within 7 days. I really want to say 3 to 5, but let's say 7. So, that made provider satisfaction through the roof. Now they weren't concerned with will we be the next to close, or what's going to go on? How will we continue to work? How will we have access to our patients? So that was an extreme momentum boost. And
Yeah.
we used that and furthered it with everything else that we did from that point forward.
And I have to say, just as a side note, which is kind of fun now looking back as we think about this, I remember there were a couple of pretty horrendous snow days in Oklahoma
Yes.
City.
Yes.
And and Dr. Ford would text or call and say, hey, you know, the streets are not allowing people to drive today. And I said, okay, so what would you like to do? And he would say, you know, just post something on social that our office is closed, but we are seeing patients on schedule via telehealth. Like literally within less than 24 hours, everybody who was scheduled to come in was transitioned to a telehealth visit. You know, you have to be prepared to do those things. And so, you know, we were joking about the weather earlier, and that's what it makes me smile.
Yeah.
As Oklahoma goes.
That's absolutely a key to success from a business perspective and from a patient care perspective. So, you know, it's about making sure that people get the appointments that they need, that they've been looking forward to. I mean, I had patients who could barely, you know, when I started seeing them, they could barely wait a week between appointments. And then when they started to feel better, you know, they got to the point where they saw me on a monthly basis. But if I would have canceled that monthly appointment, then they have to wait another month or another week, and they've been looking forward to it and writing little things down in their journal they wanted to talk about during the appointment. And they had questions for me that I needed to go and ask their providers about so that I could get them some answers. And so, you know, to think about just within, you know, less than 24 hours being able to assure patients that they would have that access and that they would be able to have that appointment is a huge differentiation and departure from what I saw a lot of people doing, which was saying, we're closed right now, we can't see you. And a lot of times it was a risk-based decision. They were worried about their license. They were worried about their liability. They were worried about this, worried about that, worried about, well, do our patients have virtual access? Pretty much, we know that the percentage of individuals in the United States that have a smartphone is very high. And if they don't have a smartphone, they have a telephone. So being able to say, we will connect with you. If you can't connect through, you know, Zoom or a telehealth appointment, we can connect with you via phone. And we're going to get this covered. And to not make that to not burden the patient with, well, how are we going to get paid for that visit? To me, that makes all the difference in the world.
And we even changed, now thinking about that, we even changed our phone lines too. Once we went virtual with everything. So now we have 100% access from home, you know. And what, you know, as Jackie was saying earlier, the weather in Oklahoma can be extremely different on extremely different days. So we, in the past, at times it was a risk getting on the road and getting providers on the road to make sure that, like you just said, our patients get to see us and they don't miss their appointments. They've been waiting on this and looking for it. So we went with VoIP phones for all our phone lines and fax machine and everything. So now we literally can be 100% virtual within minutes if we have to. That, again, that's not only patient satisfaction, that's provider satisfaction too, which helps.
You're right. And I think that's something that I didn't really think about until you just said that. But I know that, you know, from a liability perspective, from a risk management perspective, there's so much fear on the part of providers. And without having the assurance that, you know, this is going to work and you are going to be okay, it's not going to hit your license, you know, you're not going to lose your license, because I think so much of what we do in healthcare is risk management instead of wrap around the patient. And when you do that, you do the right thing by patients, your license will be secure. You will be okay as long as you're making the decision in the direction of and in the benefit of the patient to keep them well, to keep them moving forward, to keep them connected to you. I think sometimes when people make those risk-based decisions and those fear-based decisions, they actually hurt themselves more, because that's what causes patients to be unhappy, is saying, well, you know, my doctor's not providing telehealth appointments, so now I have to get a new counselor if I don't feel comfortable coming in person, you know? So like, again, I just see you making these decisions in the direction of the patient, and then providing your staff and your providers with the assurance and the safety and security, that foundation from which they can practice doing what they do best at the top of their license.
Yes.
And that's true. And can I just say that, you know, it's a commitment too on the provider's part to make those investments and to always be forward thinking and to always be anticipating what comes next, because inevitably it will come next. Something will come next that you need to be prepared for. And so in order to serve your patient, you know, you always have to be thinking of those things. And I think too that one of the things that the pandemic in particular taught us is that, especially in the behavioral health care arena, the integration of behavioral health and primary care, and also pain management, acute and chronic pain management care, those things go together.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're seeing too from patients, and this is one of the reasons, and Dr. Ford, I'll let you talk about H2GY health at some point, but I think that what we're learning is that patients get better care when it's integrated care. Patients get better care when their behavioral health specialist or their therapist or whomever they're meeting with weekly, monthly, however often, that person is in communication with their primary care provider. Because
absolutely,
the time, you're dealing with medication management, you're dealing with chronic pain issues that can be the result of, depression, a behavioral health care issue or a mental health care issue. And so that's something that Dr. Ford has just jumped straight into both feet.
Well, Larry, I'm wondering if you feel the same way that I do after all of these years specializing in integrated care. If I'm talking to a provider that isn't looking at the behavioral and emotional and spiritual aspect of healthcare, I get really annoyed. And I feel like I'm talking with a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Before we started recording today, I was telling you all about an experience that I had, recently in my own healthcare. And I think part of my annoyance, and as I mentioned, I'm an expert in what I do. So when I walk in that door, I'm interviewing you. And if you're not talking about integrated care, if I have to specifically ask you about, well, what can I do behaviorally? What psychological principles apply here? And you don't know, and I have to go and Google that myself, or here's the deal, I know going in, right? I've already Googled it if I didn't know previously.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not talking about that, I don't want to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want my family working with you or my
Mm-hmm.
patients working with you.
Mm-hmm. And it's just going to cause more, it's just going to cause more barriers. And
exactly. How much more it's going to cause that we're going to have to fix somehow, or that the patient is going to have to deal with. So why do we want to send you to a place where we know that's not going to be integrated into your care? And, we cannot be the whole team.
And you can speak to this, more eloquently than I, but isn't it proven? Aren't there studies that show that patient outcomes are more successful, that they're better when there is communication and integration between both behavioral health and physical health?
Oh yeah, that's what the Doctorate Behavioral Health program was built on. A lot of the research was done early on by Dr. Cummings and some of his contemporaries. The medical cost offset model has demonstrated time and time again that when care is integrated, costs are reduced. We save healthcare dollars by integrating care from the get-go. And for patients the more complicated or complex the person's care, the more medically fragile they are, the more critical the need for integration. Because without that, communication and collaboration amongst the medical team, patients fall through the cracks in between siloed care. Patients don't see a silo between their mental health and their physical health, but providers have been trained in silos. So with doctors of behavioral health, like Larry said, we threw away the box. There isn't a box. We don't live in a box. All we see is the whole person. So what we're expecting is to be able to say across the continuum of their care with any number of specialists in primary care, physicians or providers that are working with them, we can communicate across that, and we know at least a little bit about every bit of care that they're receiving. But what we consistently see as providers is that no one else is getting that training, and everybody else wants to kind of stay in that box because that's where they feel comfortable. There have been lots and lots of trainings available to providers telling them you need to stay within your scope. So if your scope of work is, I've been trained as a primary care physician and you've had no training in behavioral health, that doesn't mean you can't go and get the training, but it's a narrative that providers have been sold by training programs that are outdated. And so for us as doctors of behavioral health, we're a little bit evangelical about the integrated care model, about throwing out the box, because we know what the research says. Our patients and we as human beings are also consumers of healthcare. So we know what's best for us and for our patients, but we need the rest of the medical world working with us to collaborate, to communicate, to integrate that care. And so, you know, it's great to know that in Oklahoma City, at least, Larry has been doing such wonderful things. Jackie, that your partnership with Larry and with Hands to Guide You is helping him to grow and scale and, you know, create new opportunities. The National Basketball Players Association, Let's Play Sports company is really interesting to me. I kind of would like to hear about that. Where are you going next with that?
Well, that's something that we started because the mental health of the athlete is extremely important. You hear a lot of sayings, it's 90% mental, and just on the news, you see more and more athletes struggling mentally to perform and the weight of the world on them. And it was something that I got interested in a while back, and it was a conversation that me and Jackie had, and we put into place. And we went through the application process and went through the hoops and the hurdles that we had to get to, and I was selected to be one of the members. And then through continued conversations with Jackie, you know, that's on a professional level. So, you know, my boys play sports, and you know, Oklahoma is a sports state. So we looked at the college athletes and the high school athletes, and it was a way for me to give back in the realm of mental performance, you know, helping kids cope, you know, with the pressures that come with sports. And they stop playing sports with life. Oklahoma has some of the highest adverse childhood experiences in the country. You know, athletes experience a lot of different things and are required to perform. So it was a way for me to help athletes and give back in a way and present myself and be more into the community.
Right.
Be more trusted in the community.
Well, and I think too, you know, especially among athletes, I think the mental health aspect of being an athlete historically was really overlooked. It was, you know, suck it up, be strong, be brave, you know, get out there and kick ass. But I don't think a lot of players, organizations, or, you know, teams in general really put the focus on the psychological aspect or the spiritual aspect of being a human being, in your body in a way that not every human being does. So,
life happens, but what happens when life happens and you have to perform in front of 50,000, 20,000, or 10,000, or 5,000? Or what happens when your parents aren't there, or tragedy happens? What happens? You know, there was another gap in care. Doctor, you know, we're all about filling gaps, and there was a huge gap in care. And I started another organization to fill that gap in care and be present in another form in the community and gain trust, because that's one of the things that me and Jackie talk about and speak about a lot in our meetings and talk, is being present in the community and being trusted in the community, which is extremely relevant and important, you know.
Well, and I think you build that reputation further in the community by being willing to take those steps. So if you identify a gap and then you do something about it, people say, wow, he's really passionate about this. He's really doing something about it. So again, it's that reputation of, yeah, I mean what I say.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, you know, on the weekends when Dr. Ford is out with his twin boys, and they're performing and playing all over the country. You might want to brag a little bit about them. I'm so proud of them. But you know, they're youngsters. They're in middle school, but you know, they do carry the weight of the world on their shoulders when it comes to the sports performance. And you know, they have parents who support them, love them, are there at every game, who care for them, who make sure that they get their physical training, who make sure that they are eating well. You know, there are a lot of young athletes that don't have that support system. And so I love that, you know, Dr. Ford decided that he would somehow become that support system for athletes who don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very much so. You know, we were talking earlier about the box, and I say all the providers are comfortable in the box, but the most important person, which is the patient, isn't in the box.
Right.
So the sooner we get out of the box and get where they're at, meeting them where they're at, the better off we'll be, and the better service we'll be able to do, and the better we'll be able to help them on many different levels. It doesn't matter where they are or what the condition is.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And so that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, what do you see as sort of the next steps for you two in your partnership, or, you know, from a marketing perspective, and also from, you know, what else can we do from an integration perspective, whether it's in Oklahoma or elsewhere? What are the next steps?
So we're definitely going to explore the idea of creating a sports marketing and management venture together.
Mm-hmm.
But that will include, you know, the mental health component. And one thing that we should mention, and one of the ways that Dr. Ford is actively, proactively, and I think successfully meeting the challenge of integrated care and the lack thereof, is that he's bringing primary care to Hands to Guide You.
Mm-hmm.
So Hands to Guide You is not only a behavioral health practice, but come summer, probably July, we're looking at H2GY health. Mm-hmm. And there will be two components to that practice, the behavioral health care side and also the primary family care side. And so with that in mind, you know, we will be treating and caring for families, kids. When you look at the athlete and you talk about what are the next steps as far as exploring that idea of marketing and managing athletes with the idea of mental health in mind. Now, again, a lot of these kids make a decision early on in life. This is what I want to do. I want to play football, or I want to play basketball. And, you know, they're too young to really navigate that pathway on their own. And like I said before, some parents are right there, and some kids don't have the luxury of having their parents support them on that end. So that's what this new venture will be about. You know, whereas most sports management and marketing companies are looking at the college or pro athlete, we'll be looking at the younger ones to see, you know, where do they want to go? How do they want to develop? What do they want to do in life, and how can we help them get there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's something that we spent a lot of time talking about and planning, and now we're ready to move forward. And it's something, as you know, Dr. E, I've been working a very long time. Got many laughs, many no's, but through persistence and time, we've been able to get to this point. Looking at, you know, possibly getting a new location and really preparing to serve the city and the community that I reside in the best possible way.
Right. And that's one of the things that I think, you know, there are a small group of us, doctors of behavioral health, who went to school together, you know, maybe not all graduated together, but that I know I can always count on to reach out and have a really blow your mind conversation, whether it's 5 minutes or 50 minutes. And I always, you know, I really appreciate that about you. And that's one of the things I love about this partnership that you have with Jackie, because like I said, she's a DBH in her mindset. You know, she's the DBH of marketing.
Yeah, definitely. She's definitely an energy charger. She gives me energy, and she keeps me going.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of at time here, so I want to thank you both for your time and definitely congratulate you on the many pretty mind-blowing accomplishments that you've made just in the past year, but also in the past, like you said, 2.5 years together. And certainly there's so much excitement that lies ahead of you in this partnership. And I can't wait to continue to follow what you're going to do and see it grow and make huge changes in the healthcare community and make big differences in the lives of those that you serve. So thank you for your work.
You're very welcome. Yes, stay tuned.
Thank you so much.
Watch this space. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much again for being here today.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thanks for having me again.